Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Dark Pixel Podcast. My name is Mike.
My name is Landon.
I'm Kason.
Today we have some really good topics, especially from the viewer-suggested stuff. We'll get into that in a little bit. Some really good stuff from you guys this week. But first, we're going to be talking about Dragon Quest XI. Yuji Horii did an interview explaining why it doesn't have voice acting, so we'll be going over that a little bit, giving some of our thoughts. And then the release of Splatoon 2. It came out this week. Hopefully a lot of you guys are playing. Hopefully a lot of you guys are playing with Landon or Kason or both. I don't have the game.
Moving forward, maybe, yeah.
We're also going to talk about the voice chat app. We haven't given too many thoughts on this so far, but it's a controversial issue. Juicy controversy that we get to sink our teeth into today.
Juicy.
Dude, speaking of that, holy crap, that movie was released. They had a screening for the Death Note movie at Comic-Con.
Oh, the American one?
Yes. They released some clips online. They all look bad. And Christine saw it at Comic-Con, and she confirmed it's bad. So.
Oh, that's unfortunate, but possibly predictable.
Try to make their own weird thing out of it.
Yeah, I saw Light Up the New World though. I saw the new Japan one, and it wasn't all that great either, really. But it was pretty.
That Ace Attorney one though, we watched a good 15-20 minutes. That
actually looked like it had some pretty good production.
It cracked me up because everything was like real except for their hair.
Except for their hair.
The hair just looks jacked. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to
anime
watch
hair
that.
in real life. That's hard. It's tough.
Okay, viewer suggested topics. Ashley Walden first. Question is, with the meteoric rise of political correctness and with no end seemingly in sight, how do you guys see the capacity of storytelling in video games being affected, especially ones with darker, more mature themes? Do you see this as an obstacle, or should the possibility of offending someone somewhere supersede the value of the story? Great question.
Very good question.
Juan Soto, what is your preferred way to unlock ultimate weapons and items in JRPGs? Considering the fact that most JRPGs are not very difficult and thus ultimate weapons are not necessary, is it better to unlock them behind minigames, hard bosses, some sort of alchemy with rare items, etc.? What has been your best experience? He also asks the following question, the next one. What games are you playing right now that are not DPG video related or not being done for the channel purposes? Lastly, Cynthia Chow, I believe. Hi guys. Here's a question for you for your future podcast. Why do you think there haven't been more female main characters in the Final Fantasy series, especially in games like Final Fantasy X and Final Fantasy XII, in which the lead female characters are stronger driving forces in the plot than the actual main characters? Also a very good question.
Very good question.
Very thoughtful, Cynthia.
I'm eager to dive into these user-suggested topics.
As intellectuals, we will give you the answers to all of these and more.
Me an intellectual.
Yes.
What was that meme that I saw? Oh, it was the Pokemon thing, right? So it's a Facebook video, so they have the thing on the top and bottom, you know, like the words, the meme words.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So it's like someone says saddest movie ever is, I can't remember what it was, The Notebook or something. And at the bottom it says me, an intellectual, and then it's playing Pokemon scene where Ash is supposedly dead, and Pikachu's trying to like electrify him back to life.
Yeah, dude.
It's funny stuff.
Pikachu's useful to carry have around because I mean he's kind of a little like defibrillator.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
He's more useful than that. Maybe fire Pokemon are more useful.
Electrode.
No,
Voltorb.
Voltorb. Voltorb could beast it.
What if they decided to go with like Magnemite as like the main
that was the
Pokemon of
flagship?
That's the mascot. That's the face of Pokemon. It's Magnemite. Or
with these magnets in the ball.
What was the most jacked looking Pokemon in the original 150? Because I won't know
the
anything
original
past
set. Mr. Mime.
Mr. Mime was pretty.
The ones that looked kind of human.
Yeah, Mime was like a person.
Wait.
He was like a dude.
Jinx.
Jinx, the one who sings. Like basically like exactly like blackface. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, it's like what the crap, you guys.
Total.
Yeah,
that
was a strange design.
Yeah, that was the first Japanese Pokemon card I ever got. Was Mr. Mime.
Remember that?
We got it at the flea market.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the one with like the really skinny arms and legs and the big like gloved hands and like the round face?
The hair and yeah, that was Mr. Mime.
Yeah,
that was a very weird Pokemon. That should be the mascot face of Pokemon, Mr. Mime.
Mascot of Pokemon.
It should be in all the Smash games, playable.
All right. So what did you guys read about
11.
Dragon Quest XI today?
So I've got to say that if we had a little more time, we would have gone and read the Japanese interview with him because people always get this crap wrong. They always do. But I don't think this is so off base because it's literally crap Yuji Horii has said before.
For a while.
It's very Yuji Horii. He's basically saying they're keeping voice acting out, first off, because no Japanese Dragon Quest has ever launched with voice acting.
So that means none ever can or will.
That's true. People did bring that up last week. Is that in Dragon Quest VIII, which we were referring to, the Japanese version never had voice acting in it. I
didn't. And I was surprised to hear that.
What's crazy about that is the Japanese voice acting was included in the 3DS remake of that game. So the Japanese version of the game has voice acting now.
But they had to go get voice actors like this last year to go do it. For an old game.
So it sounds like their approach right now is the West wants VO. So when they do the Western release of 11, there's a high chance there probably will be voiceover in it.
Well, and something that I kind of thought of as soon as I heard that was, the Western version's coming out so much later that could easily explain why it's going to take so much longer for us to get it versus Japan because they have to do voice acting.
Because there's still not
to do
an official date on the localization, right?
I don't think so.
So
I say so much later. The fact that there's no date makes me assume that it's I don't know. It's not even on the horizon yet.
So he said that there's the tradition of the series, I suppose, whatever. But on top of that, Yuji Horii, for everyone who knows Yuji Horii, he's a big silent protagonist guy.
Yeah,
a big silent protagonist guy, and his thing was he didn't want this protagonist to even portray too many negative emotions, let alone talk too much.
Right. He talked about showing anger, and he's like, I don't want him to get too angry because then what does the viewer feel like? But it's I don't know. It's just it's an interesting way to look at it. I get it. I sympathize with the whole silent protagonist thing. I do prefer that, generally speaking.
Yeah.
But it's interesting.
But to be he can't get too angry.
He can't get mad because you'll feel awkward now. It's I don't know. And that does happen though. Sometimes I'll be playing a game. Or watching specifically an anime, and the main character gets unbelievably angry. They're screaming and crying and just and all the emotions are showing, and I'm just sitting there, holding the controller. And it's I'm not feeling what this guy's feeling. So I get that. I've been there before.
He's in a living room watching the event.
Exactly. But you don't want to go that far. I mean, you've got to put some in there. But
I feel
the awkwardness he's
feel like the only way it really works, the way he's talking about, is in a first-person RPG where you don't have cutscenes that show your character's face.
Because then you get away with it more easily.
In the Elder Scrolls, I would get angry at something that happened and I start attacking the guy or something like that, but that's purely my reaction to something, and I never saw the character's reaction to that, right? So that makes sense to me. But in a game like this where you're gonna see from a third person perspective, you're gonna see what this character looks like, what this character reacts to different situations. It doesn't make as much sense to me there to be that hardcore about that projection thing. But.
Yeah, it's true, especially with the art style too. That is an art style that is meant to show expression that individuals.
You do a lot with the eyes.
Yeah, specifically the eyes, and I'm not just talking about anime art style in general. The specific one for Dragon Quest is very much geared towards the eyebrows and the eyes are just so they're so capable of showing such subtlety.
Just think of how expressive Goku is.
Oh, exactly. I mean, I swear his eyebrows are going almost vertical. He's so mad sometimes. It's just wow, you're feeling it.
That wasn't the end of his reasons, however.
Right.
Apparently, Yuji Horii likes to manipulate and make tweaks and changes to the script until very, 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 very late in development. And that wouldn't be possible if you had to nail down the script early so that you could do sessions with the voice actors, and then if you did change something, you have to go back and do pickups. So apparently this suits him to be able to tinker all the way up until the very, very end. And some people are really mad about this. Some people are saying, dude, that you're mismanaging the project, and that's why. Like, you should be able to finish a script and be done with it at some point in time. I understand
he just has trouble
want to keep changing.
Manipulate. Yeah. Totally.
So
I mean, even like Peter Jackson. I remember, I think it was Christopher Lee or Ian McKellen or one of the guys, one of the wizards from Lord of the Rings, was talking about how Peter Jackson would give them a revised version of the script the morning that they were shooting some of those scenes, those fairy shots. And they're like, okay, rememorize these new lines now. But certain creative people just have a hard time leaving things sit and just saying, this is good.
Well, art is never finished, right?
Yeah.
It's just it has to go out the door at some point.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I don't know.
You could always just record the voice acting as the very, very, very last thing you do.
And I think that's actually a viable.
Game's totally done. Totally done. Every single thing is done by voice acting.
However,
and then
you typically will animate the mouths after the voice acting's been done instead of having the voice acting match the animation.
That's true.
So at least that would need to be left untouched. But other than that, right, you can do voice acting pretty dang late.
I figured it out. Make a game about people who are like psychic and they just speak telepathically.
The week before it's distributed, yeah.
That's true. That's true. That's practical story application.
Exactly.
Everybody just hears in their brain
and their eyes
what
just
other
kind
people
of
are saying. Yeah.
Oh, who's talking? Everyone's looking there, so he's talking.
Yeah.
Perfect. Then your silent protagonist thing is fine because it's all in his head.
Right.
He's not actually talking; he's just thinking, and you're just, it works better, right?
And you're telling people how to think.
Yeah, I remember reading up a lot about Yuji Horii when I was doing my Chrono Trigger review because he was.
Oh yeah. That's right.
He was a big lead on that project. Yep.
Yeah.
And actually, he was kind of more involved in it even than like Sakaguchi was. Like,
wow.
They brought in some other directors, like Kitase was one of 3 that directed it, but I think that Horii had more, as a producer role, had more of a creative effect on like how the final game turned out than like Sakaguchi did in particular.
Okay, yeah. I see that.
Sakaguchi was more like a supervisor role in the game, but yeah, he
really
said that
he was a supervisor.
Yeah.
Put that out there.
Yeah, he did. He was a good supervisor.
He's a very good supervisor. It's like he's not a bad director. He's a better supervisor.
What was I going to say? He argued. Kitase and Horii argued a lot about whether Chrono should speak in the game. And a lot of the Enix and the Square people butted heads about that. But particularly Horii and Kitase. And so they ended up kind of folding to Horii's ideas about silent protagonists and the player projecting themselves onto the character.
And it was the best game ever made. So case closed, done and done, right?
Well, I would say so.
The debate is over.
But there were some really interesting discussions in the comments of the discussion videos I did, but also of the review itself, of people who were on this side or the other, or felt neither preference. But it seems to me that at least, this is anecdotal experience only from people I've spoken to on my own channel, but that a lot of people who are into JRPGs tend to prefer, at least it seems to me, tend to prefer characters that are fleshed out, that they're not necessarily looking to project in quite the same way as in Western RPGs, where that's all it's about, is creating a character from scratch and like role-playing that character and stuff like that. So that's why I think, in particular, it's executed better in games like The Elder Scrolls or Baldur's Gate or those kinds of games than it is in a JRPG like Dragon Quest. That's just my personal opinion. Personal opinion. IMHO.
In certain areas. Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Disagree with us in the comments.
Yeah,
if you don't know where the comments are, it's just below the dislike button.
In the comments, where down below?
Yeah.
I'm not one of the, we've already talked about this, but I'm not one of those people that's upset about no VO in the. I think there probably will be in the Western release.
Western release,
probably, but I'm okay not having it.
And so, VO, and I agree with you. VO can ruin games. easier than it can make games better, in my personal opinion. It is rare for me to find video games with VO that is that good.
This reminds me. Okay, I was playing Trails in the Sky, and I was talking to someone on the Discord server, and this was months ago, so I cannot remember exactly what it was. I want to say maybe it was Walrus or Anvil. I'm trying to remember which. But I was saying how I felt like the dialogue in Trails in the Sky was a little like kind of janky at times. And that was like my least favorite part of the game so far. And the people I was talking with at the time, they were all like, "Are you kidding me? That's the best part of the game." And I was like, okay, here's the thing. Here's the way I'm playing that game. I am reading it out loud to my wife as she's doing embroidery. And I'm playing this game. And she wants to keep up with the story and what's going on, but to kind of work on her embroidery. And so I'm doing the characters' voices and reading it out loud and stuff. And as I'm reading these lines, I'm like, that sounded so weird. And granted, a great voice actor can make really poorly written, a great actor can make really poorly written content sound good.
Right.
They can.
Like Larry the Cable Guy.
Right. Prime example.
Sorry, just giving you guys an example of a class act.
Yeah, I can't pull that up. But from reading the lines out loud, I was like, this just sounded all wrong to me. And I realized, you know what? I probably wouldn't have gotten that if I was just reading it in my head.
Yeah, it was meant to be read.
Because you can read so much faster, and I don't know, you don't take the time to act things out. Sometimes you're just reading them. And so I think sometimes writing can get a little more of a pass when the lines aren't voice acted. And when the lines are voice acted, you need a killer localization. Because I'm obviously talking English games coming from Japanese. You need a killer localization. You need some really good writers for it to work. Or you need some phenomenal actors who can overcome bad writing. And usually you don't have that.
Don't usually go that
yeah.
far.
So anyway, that's a little rant.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about that though. Like I didn't like the writing as much in that game, where it seemed like a lot of other people did, but it was because I was reading things out loud, and I was like, this sounds weird.
That's an interesting way to look at it. Yeah. A lot of things work written, and you'll pass it off, and it'll get recorded, and you won't realize that it doesn't work when you say it out loud.
Yeah, it's a big challenge between for screenwriters who are adapting novels to films.
Yeah. You know what? There's one line.
Adjust those dialogue lines. Yeah.
In The Two Towers, actually, there's a line where Éowyn is talking. And written in the book, it's slightly different. Peter Jackson changed it a little bit. But when she's talking to Aragorn, and Aragorn's like, what do you fear, my lady? And she's like, a cage, being trapped behind bars until, But one of the specific things she says is until how did she say? Until doing great deeds becomes beyond recall or desire, right, is the way it's written. But Peter Jackson changed it to where she says all acts of valor go beyond desire or beyond recall or desire. He changed great deeds to valor, and it works better spoken. It rolls off the tongue easier. But the way Tolkien initially wrote it, as far as the book goes, is fine. It's poetic. It just, that change, and I don't agree with all of Peter Jackson's changes, by the way, but that specific change, it worked to help it kind of flow better.
Yeah.
And one of the ones that I actually agree with. But yeah, that challenge is ever present.
My view on that, if I am ever to direct like a film, even like if I were to write something and then direct it, like get the actor in there. They memorize the line, but then let them say it in the way that flows naturally to them. Like,
and if it doesn't work, get a new actor.
Exactly. Like
that's Clint Eastwood. That's Clint Eastwood.
Oh yeah, actually, yeah.
That's right, Clint Eastwood. That's the Clint Eastwood school versus the Peter Jackson school, where Peter Jackson's getting over takes.
You say it exactly the way it is in the script. I'm totally not about that. Like, I am totally about like let that actor speak in a way that comes out naturally. And if the words that I put on paper are not doing that for the actor, then they need to adjust it. As long as the underlying meaning isn't lost, that's fine. Like it's just communication. Words are just tools to communicate feelings and ideas. So as long as those feelings and ideas are being communicated, who cares what the exact wording is, in my opinion.
Yep, it helps to have work with good actors for sure, and I feel like video games tend to.
It's not a priority.
Usually not. I don't want to sound like I'm dissing on all voice actors in video games, because I understand it's an extremely difficult job. Usually they have no context for what they're reading. They're not in the same room, or they don't.
That's true.
They didn't see the other person's take. They don't even know what game this is.
That's so true.
If you don't know, that is
hard.
true.
That's so
hard.
hard.
That is actually true, guys.
If Tom Hanks was in there recording Toy Story, and he's like, "What's this for? Like, what am I doing again? Who's this guy?" You wouldn't get the same performance.
No, you would not.
Nope. Yeah, that's true.
No.
Anyways, those are our thoughts on voice acting, and the fact that we're not that upset if there is no voice acting, but there probably will be in English.
I think so. I think their marketing is going to tell them they have to.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. It'll probably sell better if they have voice acting, to be honest.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, Splatoon 2, my boys.
Yeah. Out.
How is this game?
Yeah.
Not a lot to say about it. I just got it in the mail today.
It's fun.
So I just put it in, played a tiny bit.
We played the demo last week, though.
Oh yeah, we did the Splatfest demo. It's
The same game.
Essentially the same.
It is.
The difference is that a few modes and things. The salmon run mode is only during certain times of day, on only certain days. I've seen some people upset about that. They're like, I could only play this mode while I was at work today, and I get home and I can't play that mode because it's not active now.
That's kind of
I wonder if they're going to tweak some things with that. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
They should have it be 2 different times of day.
Yeah, break it up to yeah. It's a little weird, but so I haven't had enough time hands-on to say anything like definitive about the game itself, but I mostly wanted to talk about Splatoon 2 because I've been messing around with the voice chat app. I should say the Nintendo Switch app.
Yeah.
Because that's not the only thing it does.
So, dying question on everyone's lips. How balls is it?
Okay. I have it probably tonight. I know I've got Toby wanting to get in on a match with me, or a few matches. And I'm going to try and do voice chat with him. So I haven't tried the voice chat portion, but I did want to speak to the other stuff that's in there because I haven't heard anyone else talk about it.
Right. It's actually a pretty... elaborate app.
If you pull it up, you've got all kinds of, for Splatoon 2 specifically, you've got all kinds of stuff in there. They're keeping track of all your stats from specific matches. You can open up a specific match, see what everyone else's stats were in that match, what the final, tally was, and all this stuff. You can buy clothes using your money from the game, but on your phone, there's sales for this thing is up, and this isn't real world money. This is money you earn just through playing the game. You can track what your different loadouts have been. I'm trying to think. You can check the times for when map stuff cycles through. I was messing with that today, and that part of it actually kind of impressed me.
It's a pretty slick looking app.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm actually really happy with all of that. When it comes to the voice chat functionality, I feel like the Switch. If I had to make a guess, because this is so bonkers and kind of dumb in a lot of ways, if I had to make a guess, the Nintendo Switch is throttled somehow in a way that they don't want the hardware to be hampered trying to run these voice chat background processes. That's all I can think of. That they don't want the CPU burdened by that, and so they're thinking they could offload it and get away with that.
One thought on as far as that goes as to why they didn't do it. And I've said this before, I think, but it's been a long time. But games that are played online where the system and the game are facilitating the online interaction, they always have to say online interaction's not rated on the box. Okay. And when you bring the game home and you play online, I don't care who you are, where you're from, or what game you're playing. If you are playing online, people are saying the F word. It doesn't matter, right? So a parent buying Splatoon 2 for their kid, and the kid plays online because it's an online game, and first thing they hear is a stream of F words and some 12-year-old boy saying that some girl shouldn't be playing, or all the gay slurs, all that, and being and all of a sudden it's this is a Nintendo game, right? You know what I'm saying? It kind of, it affects, it may not seem like it, especially to adults or people who are maybe grown up or a little more mature, but that one thing affects Nintendo's image, and it affects the game, and it affects the way parents think of games. And I know it's not all about the kids. The Switch is being marketed all around, but kids are still a huge target of Nintendo's audience. And if the kids are playing that game and that's what's happening, I do see Nintendo as not liking that. And that explains not just Splatoon, but all online interactions. This is why Nintendo will not let you voice chat for a long time, because that will happen and your mom will flip out.
So I
never buy a Nintendo game again.
I totally see that. I just feel like, I don't know. It just comes with the territory. Like, what can you really do about that? Like,
well, not have it. And Splatoon sold well just fine without it. And and kids can play it in a safe environment.
Is there not a way to like type a message to somebody in the?
There is. No, it's pre-selected. You can't actually type.
Yeah, you can't.
Kind of like Monster. Well, no, Monster Hunter you could do
people, that. But it's easy to censor certain words. You just type it. It's in your code. You run a script and say don't exclude any. But when people are speaking it, you can't do that. You can't take that out. You can't censor it.
So today, I only played like a couple matches, just real quick, and there was a
one of the Miiverse?
Yeah, Miiverse freaking F word like scrolling.
See, that's one of the things. The Miiverse is supposed to be moderated, right? But
and you can report Miiverse posts, but I've seen across the lifespan of the Wii U, I've seen enough sketchy Miiverse posts to be like, ooh, dang.
I've seen a few. Yeah, that was a risky move by Nintendo.
Under the radar. So. Anyways,
it's still there. You're right. You can't avoid. If you're going to let humans interact with other humans, that stuff will exist, and Nintendo's trying to minimize it.
So you have all of the necessary hookups to be able to do the voice chat. Is it super complicated?
You can just This is kind of one thing that cracks me up about what a lot of people have been showing. They've been showing what everyone complains about online is trying to run a feed through the audio jack from your phone into a headset and the feed from the Switch itself into a headset through a combiner. And so you'll see the phone going into a thing, the Switch going into a thing, and then that thing going into a headset.
Yes, that's what I said.
Now that's one way to do things, but the other way to do things is just have your phone on.
The screen does have to be on.
The screen has to be on, which is stupid.
That is the dumbest thing in the world.
But the way I'm going to do it when I try it tonight, hopefully, is I'm just going to have the app on and just my phone just like on the couch next to me, and I'm just going to be playing it. Like
so you'll be able to talk in here just from the speakers on the phone and through the microphone.
Yeah, kind of like how I've used Discord for that before for Splatoon, and that's usually how I've done that too, because I don't have like a headset or anything, and it works. Usually you have to change the tolerance on your mic sensitivity to not pick up like your TV.
Oh yeah,
because Discord will toggle your mic on and off.
Right.
And if that threshold is set too low, the TV will activate your mic constantly, and the other person will be hearing it the whole time.
And they'll be pissed.
So, anyways, I'm gonna try that out. But why the app has to be active? Like Discord, you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Like honestly, just freaking use Discord.
Just gonna kill your battery. I know. Just
use Discord.
Use Discord.
But the app is cool because it tracks all of your KD ratio for matches. I know. It's just what people call it. But it tells you all of your last 50 matches and like how much ink or turf you've
painted,
what the upcoming ones are.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So there's some cool stuff in there. I haven't seen anyone talk about that stuff yet, but the rest of it is absolute balls, and Nintendo needs to like get on it. I don't think there's any fixing the logistics of the cords plugging into things right now.
Right.
But why? I just have to guess that the Switch isn't. They don't want to burden the CPU more than they already are with these games. I have no idea, and I don't even know how CPU intensive voice chat is.
It can't be that bad. It really can't be that bad.
I don't know, man.
It's hard to say that would be like, unless it's just running at like 99% capacity all the time. Yeah. It's just like just like on the verge of failing.
Because remember, now this is on a whole nother level, but the Xbox One was throttled slightly because of the Kinect requirements with the Kinect.
That's right. So the Kinect keeps down,
and people were pissed about that. But that's different than in-game voice chat. That's a feature of the game.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, so
as far as Splatoon, just the game though, I have to say that controller is not like the Wii U gamepad was so much more
Felt better.
comfortable. And I know there's the Pro Controller and other options, but Splatoon 2 is like a better game on a worse controller. And I personally prefer playing Splatoon 1. But I haven't, like Lana said, we haven't had enough time to really play it like a long time and get used to things. But I was having trouble, man. I was not doing well.
Well, they changed where the jump button was.
I know,
so-
that's,
so-
I kept turning on the map.
I'm still doing that.
Gotta get a pro controller, man. That's how they get you.
Be professional.
Yeah, gotta spend an extra $70.
Yeah, $70, dude.
Jeez.
I will
By the
get
way, the
that
SNES
someday.
Classic is coming out on my birthday, people.
Oh, really?
On my birthday.
Oh, wow.
Give me
Guess
one.
what? Guess what? You don't get for your birthday. You don't get.
That's right. You won't be able to find one. What am I even saying? They'll print like 5 of them. Send them out to select cities across the country.
So I'll make a Raspberry Pi one for you.
Yeah.
Seriously, I mean,
Nuts.
I know that's not illegal. I get it, but fetch. What a better deal. Okay, let's move on. Ashley
Alrighty.
Walden. With the meteoric rise of political correctness and with no end seemingly in sight, how do you guys see the capacity of storytelling in video games being affected, especially ones with darker, more mature themes? Do you see this as an obstacle, or should the possibility of offending someone somewhere supersede the value of the story? Ashley, before we get started, I'd like to know what your feelings are about political correctness and your feelings, maybe even, you know, about like the way women are portrayed in video games. Like, just interested to hear your
Or yeah,
thoughts
the way it's
before we-
affected you. Yeah.
Yeah. Because, you know, we're 3 dudes. We've talked about it before
White.
a little bit on the
Have you
podcast.
noticed?
We'll dive into it now, but just so you know, as you're watching this, I'd like to know what your perspective is on that as well.
Yep.
So, I think it's safe to say that the 3 of us are fairly moderate people for the most part. We don't, like, go way on this side or that side on issues like this. I would say that there definitely are ways that video games could be better about the way that they portray women in particular. At the same time, I feel very strongly that like artists should be allowed to express themselves the way that they want to. And if you don't like it, then don't fetching play the game. Like, I mean, you know, there's an argument to be made about the impact that this may or may not have on kids and how it shapes the way they think. I think that the jury's really still out on that. There's not a lot of conclusive evidence that say that, you know, consuming video games, especially in terms of like the violent content, you know, that it it makes kids more violent or anything like that. But I know that there are cases, as anyways, like it's a back and forth thing. It's not, we don't have a definite answer to this, but I definitely feel like while we can be doing better in certain ways, that's not worth trying to enforce or make people adhere to a certain standard when they want to express themselves in a different way. My view is that if you don't agree with something, don't support it. Discuss it online. Get people together and talk about it, and try to you know, persuade people with you know, your own thoughts and your own ideas. I think that's healthy. I think that's good. That shapes the way that things are done for sure. But don't try to silence people or make them adhere to your way of thinking. Don't try to undermine the work that they're doing. That's just my approach to that. So now the second part of the question where you said what effect do we think this is going to have on video games moving forward, and let's see, is offending someone somewhere, does that supersede the value of the story? No, but you also have to look at this from the perspective of a big company who has thrown tons of money into something, and who are trying to have the greatest mass appeal possible. I think it's debatable whether or not these extremists who are super hardcore PC all the time are really going to affect sales in the way that I think sometimes the game companies themselves feel afraid of because of the negative press that gets generated by it. I think that's a very small minority of people, to be honest. I don't think that it's going... I think they're a little more scared of the buzz and the press that will happen around it affecting people's opinions, maybe than they should.
Sales, yeah.
Yeah. But no, I don't think that offending somebody should be a reason to change your vision. I think that offending somebody in some ways, I want to say it's a good thing, because I don't think that, but I do think that using that, or not the company, not the person creating, but people who do take offense to something, people who do feel as if that's not appropriate, I think they can use this as a way to create discourse and discuss it and talk about it and spread their ideas. And I think that's healthy. I think it's healthy for something to come out that you take umbrage with, and then you go amongst your peers and people and you explain your ideas, and the best ideas come against each other, and the best ones win, and people are persuaded by the best ideas, the ones that make the most sense. That's how you get progress in society. And so I'm very against censorship in any way, whether that comes from some government entity that forcing someone to take something out of the game, or whether that comes from the company themselves just being afraid that the content of their game is going to offend somebody, so we better take that out or whatever. I don't like that idea. I understand from the business position why they do it, and I support their freedom to do that if they feel that's the best thing for their product. But I'd rather people just chill out and realize that if you don't like something, you don't have to consume it, and you can go tell people why you don't like it. And anyways.
Something that was in the news this last week, and this is a whole can of worms that we do not really have to talk too much because I don't really have a heck of a lot to say about it. But the creators, or the producers rather, of the HBO series Game of Thrones have announced what their new series is going to be, and it's a series called Confederate, and it's an alternate reality where the Confederacy did not lose the war. The Mason-Dixon line is a demilitarized zone, and it's in modern times. I didn't hear they don't have scripts written or anything, but slavery is still going to exist in this southern United States of this alternate reality. And I've seen a lot of people, a lot on Twitter, who are really, really, really upset about the prospect of this, because I've seen some people, and I don't pretend to speak for anyone in the Black community whatsoever, but I have seen a lot of outrage from the Black community on Twitter at this idea, saying that things like the Black experience of slavery is not for sale to entertain. Things like that. Obviously, very valid criticisms and concerns, I think, because I believe there's a worry that there's the possibility of normalizing something or glorifying, or it's touchy. Right. It's super touchy. That's just something that came to my mind. This is not a video game, but that's something that came to my mind with this, because sometimes there are subjects that do affect a specific community, extremely disproportionately, and that can be a really, really, really tricky area. And on the flip side of that, I 100% believe that the producers of Game of Thrones court controversy purposefully.
Yes.
Because it drives sales. Sure. So there's a way that they can leverage that, and it brings the eyeballs. Because when there's this, somebody did something kind of nuts or out there, or something really extreme happened, that does bring in some type of attention sometimes. And so only to the extent that they have any kind of control over what they're doing now based off of what George R.R. Martin did. But yeah, that's something that came to my mind, where it's really easy to think about the more obvious ones, especially in the video game community, the ideas of feminism or whatever. But when you talk about maybe digging up a really a difficult part of the past for a specific community, and in some people's minds parading it as a form of entertainment again is difficult. You walk a fine line with movies like Schindler's List, with movies like 12 Years a Slave.
They recently just remade Birth of a Nation. the old D.W. Griffith
Yeah.
movie from like 1915, I think. And that movie's heavily criticized for just being terrible to the black people and just really not portraying them well. Of course, this was 100 years ago. But it was just now remade, and I believe the people who remade it, or I think the director at least, was black. And they actually were able to use this as, I don't know, kind of like a conversation springboard, kind of a way to portray their own, a way to kind of mold their own story as opposed to letting other people do it for them.
Gotcha.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And this isn't something that's really touched on in video games that often. I don't know. I'm trying to think of games that bring up like slavery, for example. But I feel like there's games where you start out as a slave, but you're not like a historically
usually
relevant like a black slave was.
Yeah.
Right.
You're an indentured servant, probably more.
Yeah.
Would be
I think for the most part, it seems like feminism or like this extreme violence are the two like controversial sort of like things.
Yeah, like the no Russian level for Modern Warfare. That Modern Warfare 2, that was definitely a thing that got them headlines. For sure, I almost wonder what the impact on the sales of the video game was because people heard about it or because of that. I don't know. But I think some companies leverage that controversy sometimes. Conker's Bad Fur Day totally did.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. that people were talking about that for a long time. That was before social media.
It's, I understand that there are certain topics. I think the one you brought up is a good example of something that's just like, especially in the United States right now, things are just so divided and people are so passionately like everything's just so tense when it comes to social issues right now in our country.
Wasn't there a movie that came out recently that was like, what if the Nazis had won?
Oh, you're talking about Man in the High Tower?
Man in the High Tower?
Amazon. Yeah, that's their whole series.
I wonder if the Jewish community was upset about that.
I have no idea. I've never seen it, so I'm not.
Because there's two ways to look at it. You can either say, oh, they're using our troubles and something that to this day keeps us down as entertainment, or you can say, hey, this is letting people know how terrible it would have been if that actually succeeded more than it did, and if that continued, how bad things would be, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, like in particular, the argument you brought up from the community saying like this experience is not something that is yours to profit from or to create an entertainment experience around.
If it's just entertainment, but it's also art, right?
Yeah, like you're forgetting, first of all, I think the artistic aspect, which is to bring ideas forward to challenge the way people think about these issues. It can be used as a platform to do that. Who knows how they're planning to do that? Obviously, we don't know yet. Right. I would assume they're going to try to bring to light. I don't know. I can't speak for anybody. All I know is we don't know. But my point is that there are artistic aspects to it that can help change the way people think about these things. But on top of that, I wonder whether that experience is anybody's to own and dictate whether it should be, how it should be handled in art or entertainment or in whatever way, how that should be portrayed or talked about or whatever. I struggle with that a little bit because I think that we, in our society a little bit, try too much to dictate how people can speak or not speak about something, who is allowed or not allowed to have an opinion about something, depending on what your race is or whatever, or whether you're male or female. And I understand that people feel like you are not part of my in-group, so you do not understand it. That's true. I can't say that I understand what it's like to be part of this or that group or race or whatever. But I also think that we need to be careful when we're talking about telling an entire group of people you have no right whatsoever to speak on this topic, to create something or any kind of art that has to do with that topic. You are not allowed at all. When we start policing what people can and cannot say or do, I don't like that idea. I don't like that. I don't like that.
I really enjoy history a lot, and so I don't believe anything historically should ever be off limits, because I believe that making a movie or a TV show about something, especially if it comes from a place of honesty, is only going to foster more awareness and conversation and realization of like how far we have come in, honestly, an extremely short period of time. We're talking about some of these things like 150 years ago, not really actually that long ago in the grand scheme of things, right? Like the United States is a country that a little over 200 years old, not that old of a country.
Yeah,
really. I think these things are important to just we can't forget about them. Now, obviously, that's coming from the historical perspective. The example I brought up is
alternate history.
So not doing that, but I don't know how I feel about it personally. I don't really know how I feel about that particular case, but with a lot of these things, I feel like like you were saying, Mike, it should really be a market dictates kind of thing. It's like, and that's what it is. I don't think anyone's calling to have the government come in and shut Confederate down, but I'm sure there will be people calling for boycotts of it, probably from both sides, to be completely honest.
That's true.
There will probably be people who, for completely different reasons,
won't like
the
way that they're about to be portrayed.
Yeah. So
I'll tell you that right now. No one down there is going to be happy about this.
Yeah.
We know a lot of people.
I'm trying to think of we know a lot of people.
We know a lot of people.
I'm trying to think of a video game example of like this kind of thing to like really like bring it back into the realm of video games.
I have.
You have one?
The first time that this whole thing happened, and not the first time, but the first time I remember that I actually, it sort of affected me. Do you guys remember the very first time they were going to reboot Tomb Raider back 2010, I think? There was supposed to be a rape scene.
Was it like an attempted rape scene? Was it like an actual rape scene?
I do not remember.
Okay.
It was in the cave. She's in the cave, and
at the very beginning,
the people like take her and knock her out, and it's like pretty freaky, right?
Yeah.
Now there was going to be a scene where either she did or it was about to,
or one of the other people,
have been raped. Or maybe someone she was with. Yeah. I can't remember the specifics. I probably shouldn't be talking about it since I can't remember the specifics, but I do want to talk about it just because that part got taken out. That did not make the final version of the game.
Okay.
And so basically what you have is the girls getting kidnapped and they're beaten up and roughed up like we're used to in video games, but nothing out of the ordinary happens to them, right? Now, I've experienced a lot vicariously through video games, but like witnessing or being involved at least in some way in a rape scene, that is something that I have like honestly no real desire to be a part of or to be not involved, but to be privy to, I guess. But it's also something really deep and heavy and important that happens all the time that just got swept under the rug, if you kind of follow me. Like
if this doesn't talk about it in media,
exactly,
then it's easy for people to be like, this isn't a persistent issue.
Yeah, it's not. This doesn't happen all that often, right? Well, the reality is it happens all the freaking time, right? But when you consume media that is supposed to be realistic, that's supposed to, girls get kidnapped on some remote island by militant. That's going to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in video games, it's like, okay, well, actually, let's pretend that doesn't happen, and let's pretend that they're treated just fine. And she's still beat up, right? She's not treated fine, but let's pretend that these bad guys were actually, have some moral code and did not do that to her. And that's fine. But for one reason, it's like, hey, you're doing a disservice by making people believe that this stuff doesn't happen very often, because they don't see it very often. You don't want to see it. It's not something you don't want to see people get their head blown off either. You see that all the time in video games. That is constantly happening.
Mm-hmm.
But the flip side of it is, what about people who have been raped and they're playing this game? They're gonna have PTSD. That's not something that's happened in a video game that I've played before. Right. And if they're specifically with the female protagonist and they're trying to court maybe slightly larger percentage of that female demographic than other games normally do, You don't, and a lot of women have gone through things like that, sexual assault and others. You don't want to bring up bad memories with them. You don't want to cause like trouble there. So I totally understand why in some cases it should not be there. But the fact is, no games like even talk about it. You know what I'm saying? And this is a huge, huge, huge issue that a lot of people don't think is that big of a problem. And a lot of people don't know that it happens ever. And these are the people, a lot of times are people who are consuming these video games and who, this is a medium that could be used to spread awareness about, some of the terrible things that happen in the world, specifically in that situation, but that kind of isn't allowed to realize that potential because it's so immersive and it's so real. It feels too much like it's happening to you. Well, and that's scary.
That was part of the controversy with the no Russian level in Modern Warfare 2 was that you didn't have to, but you could pull a trigger and shoot civilians.
Yeah, I remember that.
You could, or you could. You could skip the level, or you could play the level, but just never shoot.
It's always with violence, though. It's always
video games have that layer
of violence and too much violence.
And like it does add an extra layer of concern to people. That's why there's people that are like, oh, this person did this thing in a game, they're going to go do this in real life, which has not been supported by any studies.
No.
And so, it's tricky because you don't want to ever say that something is off limits, but it is obvious that companies are avoiding certain things because I think it's so hard to do some of these things right.
Because these companies are trying to make money, and if people think that you did that to make money. You just, showed this terrible thing to make money, right? Now it's a problem. Now I care about it. I'm like, don't do that. Don't do it for that reason, right? Do it. Actually give it the proper treatment that it deserves.
Well, this is actually an interesting conversation I've had with my parents several times. They're very, strict, no R-rated movies kind of people. I grew up not being allowed to watch R-rated movies. And
except
to me,
you were allowed to watch Passion of the Christ. I remember.
I did.
That was the one
exception.
One.
I grew up very religious. Anyways, so in my conversations with them, there's just certain kinds of content that they don't want to see at all. And in my discussions with them, it's been like, it's not. This movie is not glorifying this thing. Just because this content is in the movie does not mean that it's saying that this is moral or right or in any way, trying to show like this is how you should live too or something like that. Obviously, there are movies and games and stuff that do that to some extent. But a lot of times, a movie is showing you the reality of how gruesome and cruel and horrible life can be for people that we don't even know about, that we're not aware of. And a lot of times those are my favorite kinds of movies to watch, is because I'm not aware that this kind of thing is happening. And it's like, holy crap, I don't feel good after I leave that movie. And that's fine. That's actually intentional.
That's the point sometimes.
You're supposed to understand that, in some way you leave with a sense of gratitude of how lucky you are to be in the position you're in, that you don't live this way, but to feel so gut-wrenched for the awful things that happen in this world, and to open your mind to how blessed you are.
Totally.
I see that as being a good reason to watch and consume media that has content in it that is uncomfortable to view and to experience, and that we don't have to see it as they're normalizing it, or in a lot of ways I don't think they're trying to normalize it. They're trying to help you understand how
make people aware, right? Exactly.
Yeah, how horrible this is, and that there are people who go through this, and be aware of that, and be conscientious of that, and be understanding of that with these people. And I think that the entertainment industry, even though it's entertainment, is not always about entertaining people. I think if that's your goal, if you're setting out as a creator to entertain people, then you probably shouldn't use content like that.
You're not going to treat it right, and people are going to hate you.
Yeah, and you will make light of it, and it will be a problem. So if that's the goal of the medium,
when it comes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And if you evaluate your story midway through development, say, guys, our goal is to entertain with this. This probably isn't appropriate for that. That's a good choice. Remove it. But if the point of the media is to make people more aware of something or to help people understand, you know, the severity of what's going on in this part of the world or what happened in, you know, in history or whatever, in a way that you didn't get in the classroom when you were in high school, I think that that's absolutely appropriate, and it could have very positive effect on the way that we think about things.
I think so.
You
So
know, what's
yeah, go ahead.
interesting is people are more open to that in books than they are in movies.
Yeah, for sure.
I remember
That's true.
being assigned reading, you know, in 6th grade or even mostly starting around middle school, but assigned books that I knew my parents had also read and other people had read, and I'm reading it and I'm like, if this was a movie, it wouldn't be a movie I would be allowed to see
Yeah.
as a 12-year-old or whatever.
Yeah.
But as a book,
I'm trying to think of what was
as a
the
whole.
wheat, the field, the field, the wheat. Oh,
of Mice and Men,
No,
Grapes
no.
of Wrath,
no, the one Fields,
W.C. Fields.
Oh,
The
shoot.
first book that I read that I thought that about was Jurassic Park. However. It
There's
wasn't
a lot of
like,
F words in that book, dude.
oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a lot of
it was
words,
I was
yeah.
like, what? This was the book? Like,
That was same with me and my brother too. We went to the library and we were reading Jurassic Park and we read Sphere, and in both cases
Yes,
we were
the
like,
Michael
"Holy crap!"
Crichton, yeah.
Like, don't tell mom that we're fetching reading
yeah,
this book
exactly.
because
but then your parents are like, my kids are reading, good job.
yeah, reading books.
This is good. It's
yeah.
a good thing to do.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I feel like people are more willing to approach those uncomfortable things, and maybe because they have more control over the flow of the experience in the form of a book. In a movie, you dictate nothing.
Yep.
You're there. It's a passive medium,
Right.
which is why books are passive, except for you can like pause at any time. You don't have to have the whole audience or whatever. Like, guys, I'm gonna finish this movie later, and everyone's
Yeah,
yeah. But
You know-
video games have that interactive element.
they do.
You know, obviously.
And also, of all of the mediums, right, since you're talking about that, we've got books, TV shows, movies, plays, video games. Of all of these mediums of entertainment, right, I think video games is seen as, and I'm not saying this is true for everyone here, but it is perceived as being the one that is most, like, just entertainment. Like,
for
this
fun.
is
Yeah,
for
you do it for
just
fun.
to be entertained. Yeah, so if you watch plays, you're sophisticated. If you read books, you're informative. If you watch movies, you're passive. If you watch TV shows, you just want to binge. I don't know, but you're excitable. But if you play video games, you just want to be entertained. And there's no other reason. And that's kind of just like the general stereotype of the mediums. And so when a video game does something, it's seen more as, oh, this is just purely an entertainment medium. Why are you having this happen to people? Why are you doing this and that and this and that? It must be just for entertainment, right? That may not be the case, but that's how video games are being perceived. And unfortunately, the majority of people in the world don't play video games. I don't know if that's true anymore, though. I'll still say that that's true for now, but it may not be true very soon. And especially the people who run the world, the older people.
People who run the world.
They don't play video
They
games,
don't play
right?
video
So as
games,
far as
for
they
sure.
know, oh, that's what my kid does to waste time, and he doesn't want to see this crap in that game, so take it out, right? And that's a perception that needs to change, and video games themselves can take a hold of that, and don't just tell people to change their perception. Make games that force people to change their perception on what a video game is, and that's what's going to do more for the cause of all of this stuff than anything else.
That's games like Detroit Become Human. You know, some games have that under the surface, but it's not their overt thing.
But exactly.
The BioShock games have an overt moral.
Yes.
Not a lot of games
Yeah.
have an overt moral besides just like the Good Guys one or something like
Right.
that. Or but some games do. And I would say JRPGs tends to be a little more diverse in that category. But I would say there's genre conventions that make certain types of things like okay, even within a piece of like even within the same like media. For example, like Ken Burns making a documentary recounting slavery in the Civil War is seen one way.
Right.
Somebody
Nothing wrong with that.
making a movie depicting those things and reenacting those things
Right.
is unfortunately viewed another way.
Yeah.
they're
That's
both
true.
movies, or Ken Burns stuff's usually on TV, actually. But you know, people look at the Ken Burns thing like you're watching this to expand your horizons and learn
You're
things and better
artistic.
yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, yeah, I guess it's people assuming what the audience is there for. Like you're saying, you're assuming you're just having
12-year-old
fun and
kid
you're having
being
fun
entertained.
killing. It's
And I guess that is a big difference. Movies will typically try to pursue maybe a late teen demographic, early 20s. TV shows, kind of the same thing. Books pursue an older demographic, generally speaking, right? Plays an older demographic. But then video games are typically going after that like 12 to 15-year-old. Like most of like
the biggest
big
ones,
games,
for
right?
sure.
And yeah, of course not every game, but the big games, the sweet spot, that big market that music is also always going for, is that 12 to 15-year-old demographic, and that leads. I mean, though typically a 12 to 15-year-old wants to be entertained more than the other values that these entertainment mediums can have, and I think that leads to the companies themselves being like, oh, just put this in there. That's all the kids want, and that's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, add new protagonists to this video game who are teenagers.
Like Final Fantasy 12.
Here's a thought, though. We just saw the movie Dunkirk, right?
Okay, yeah.
Oh, I saw that last night, by the way.
You did? Okay, so we've all seen Dunkirk now. Talking about most World War II
Spoiler warning.
I've
Spoiler
ever
warning.
seen. Compare them all, except maybe Saving Private Ryan, but even still Saving Private Ryan, because it is a bit, the character, I don't know, there's still a lot of stuff in there that maybe ought not be in there, but compare all of those movies to Dunkirk, where it is like the least glorification of war movie I've ever seen. Right, you don't have this superhero that's just like on fire, kill streaks, right, just messing people up.
Closest is Tom Hardy's character. That's
in the plane, and he. Well, anyways, you should watch the movie. I'm gonna say what happens to him. Watch the movie, because that is war, and war freaking sucks.
It's a very negative
film. Absolutely,
it's very.
You know what I thought was so interesting about that movie was
it's kids,
especially in comparison to something like Saving Private Ryan. Saving Private Ryan is a hard R-rated, very, very like violent movie. And it shows the reality of how like the gore aspect of it in a way that Dunkirk does not, right? Dunkirk doesn't go that direction. However,
no, you don't see all that.
Yeah, Saving Private Ryan tells a more traditional Hollywood-like kind of story still.
Exactly.
And I was going into Dunkirk, having been a fan of Christopher Nolan for a long time, expecting that kind of thing, and it's not.
I was pleasantly surprised that it's not.
Yeah, I actually thought it was really interesting that the movie was more about just giving you a glimpse of what it is like to be in that situation, and that's it. That's the whole point.
Who develops and changes, and there's no character arc in the movie. It doesn't exist.
It's not about telling a story. It's about just giving you the experience of being in that desperate, horrible situation, and it pulls it off very well.
Talk about silent protagonists, am I right? He
freaking love it.
Yeah, exactly.
They only talk when they absolutely have to, and not only that, you don't see, spoiler alert, I guess, but you don't see a single German in the entire movie.
Nope.
You do not see a single time that the Germans are shooting at them. You never see where the gunfire is coming from. The only thing you ever see is a couple of German fighter planes, because there's no freaking way they could get away with not showing those.
But you don't see the faces. You don't see
you don't see a face. You don't see a single person. And on the ground, you never see who is shooting at them ever. From the first.
I guess the only one would be, but again, they're very small. Is when they're approaching at the very end. They come over that hill and they're running to capture.
They're doing something, but even then, you don't see the faces.
You don't see their faces. You don't see a person. You just see little people out in the distance, soldiers marching forward. And
honestly, for the soldiers at Dunkirk, the Allied soldiers, that was their experience. They rarely came. You don't come face to face. You don't get a close up of who you're fighting. These snipers shoot you from a mile out, and you're done. You died now, and you have no idea who killed you or where it came from, and that's it. But my point in bringing Dunkirk up is that is so like that is a very realistic feeling interpretation of what otherwise could have been a very glorified Hollywood action film, and instead it was a very realistic, very bleak, very depressing, very, you know, I don't know, just a very realistic feeling film that does not make you super happy after.
Yeah, I would not say that I felt entertained
I would not trade that
at any point in that movie
for anything, because
it was so tense, dude.
Those are the experiences that movies like can give to people that broaden your horizons and that aren't just to be entertained. Anyone who went to see Dunkirk to be entertained was severely disappointed.
The people in front of us were. We watch,
Yeah.
we usually wait through the credits, right? And
We
so
do.
like the people in front of us were like, it's this old lady and old guy, and they were complaining about the movie so much. Guy was like, "That's not how ships sink. They don't do this and that." like, oh my gosh.
I'm pretty sure Chris Nolan sunk real ships. So.
I was actually really impressed by all of the. I don't know how much of it was practical, like what percentage of those aerial shots were
I think
practical.
a lot of it
they all
was.
So much of that was real, and that
felt
is
real as fetch. And
that
seeing
is
things
awesome.
like that makes me look at like CG and be like, we're nowhere close. CG has a long freaking way to go before it looks like that.
Well, even the shots of Tom Hardy in the cockpit, you see the ocean in the background behind him, and I felt like he was really flying that plane.
Yeah,
I don't
that
know if
was
that's
freaking
true,
cool.
but
And his,
I
like,
wouldn't be surprised.
shaking and rattling as he's flying, and it's like the whole way.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
So,
Anyways, great movie, guys. Watch it. But as far as, you know, how to treat hard subjects, that movie did an incredible job. And, you know, a lot of video games maybe could do better. But that doesn't mean that you need to bully them and force everyone to boycott their
well,
game.
well, and I
They
do
didn't
want
treat it
to.
the way you
I
wanted them
do
to.
also want to give the caveat that if your goal is to go for entertaining people, that's not a better or a worse decision. It's just that
Right.
the medium as a whole, I think, is what Kason is getting at, can have more experiences like Dunkirk that are meant to give you an experience that helps you understand and you know what certain people have gone through.
If we want this medium to be taken seriously, it needs to.
So, like, you think about the Oscars compared to, like,
Video Game Award.
whatever the current most prestigious video game awards even
I
are.
think it's the one, yeah.
But like, the
G14,
types of movies that win an Academy Award and the types of movies that will win, like, Game of the Year are... The genres are so different. Like, usually it's period pieces for the Academy Awards. Period pieces are drama, long, slower paced movies.
Black and white movies disproportionately will, even today, will still win.
A lot of stuff that just focuses on character and that kind of
deep
stuff.
character.
Usually not plot-driven movies, but
right.
You know, that provide a lot of those moments. Like I think there's a force in Hollywood for people to make things like that because, like, you may be going for an Oscar or something. In the video game community, I don't even know what the equivalent of that would be, to be honest, because I don't think there really is anything. But the type of movie that tends to win Best Picture versus the type of video game that tends to
win Best Video
Game of the Year. There's like multiple games that are Game of the Year every year.
I know.
They're pretty different. They're pretty different from each other. And I think that says a little bit, not about what because like the Game of the Year stuff sometimes is just a popular thing. Academy Awards are not. They're a popular thing within the Academy, but it's not the highest grossing movie of the year.
Not even close. It rarely is. Yeah.
I think Return of the King might have been like the
Titanic.
Titanic. That's
but like Avatar in 2009, it was nominated.
Those feel more like what video
games
bring more often than not.
And
there's a lot of video games out there. There's a lot. Indie games are exploring more of this stuff, I think, than AAA video games are, to be honest, from the stuff that I've seen. So you'll find more difficult to grasp themes in stuff like Thomas Was Not Alone or Limbo, or even like the Stanley Parable, stuff like that. But those are indie games. Those
will never win Game of the Year.
No,
which
is not whoever gives that out.
I know, that's the thing. But like whenever you see an art film, it's like, oh, they're gunning for an Oscar. Like Leo DiCaprio, oh, he just wants an Oscar. That's why this movie is like this, right? But yeah, in video games, it's like if you just make an artistic film that realistically treats, you know, you're not going to win anything. You're going to come home empty-handed. You're not going to make money or, win a prestigious award. So, like, what are you going to do now?
Yeah, the market
so
definitely
the incentive's not there.
A lot there, for sure.
Yeah.
Anyways, we could talk about that forever.
Yeah.
We could talk about that forever.
We could spend more time on it. I hope that none of what we said was taken the wrong way. Like Mike said at the very beginning, we understand we are young-ish white people who are men, and yeah, we know that, and I hope that no one was offended through that whole discussion. We aren't trying to offend people. We do feel sympathy for people who have gone through difficult situations that aren't being treated fairly online.
But if you were offended, maybe it was because we did it on purpose so we could establish more dark mature themes in our podcast.
We can have our
it was an artistic choice for the podcast.
Artistic choice.
Anyways,
that's a joke in case you didn't follow that.
That's a joke.
That is a joke.
That is a joke.
Anyways.
Please. And now we got to be PC. We got to make sure we point out when we are joking or not.
I don't. Anyways, we're done with that topic. Okay, Juan Soto. What is your preferred way to unlock ultimate weapons and items in JRPGs, considering the fact that most JRPGs are not very difficult and thus ultimate weapons are not necessary? Is it better to unlock them behind minigames, hard bosses, some sort of alchemy with rare items, etc.? What has been your best experience? I hate RNG. I absolutely hate RNG in any way, shape, or form, anywhere,
worst part about
anytime.
Monster Hunter, right?
Yes. So when it comes to rare items, or you have to have this and this item,
it's usually a random drop, right? And a 1%.
Not a fan of that. So that's a scratch for me. I think behind hard bosses is pretty good because it's like, especially in a lot of JRPGs, the final boss is not actually the hardest boss in the game, right?
Typically,
so
yeah. It's the side bosses, right, that you don't have to fight.
If you want to get an ultimate weapon or something really powerful, you don't need it for the final boss. You can go fight the final boss with regular weapons and be fine. But as a reward for doing something even harder to get that, weapon or whatever, as a reward for that, I kind of like that the best. Sometimes mini games are good. I think in Final Fantasy VII's case, where Omnislash is unlocked behind the battle arena, is pretty interesting because, I mean, you're still battling, but you're battling with all of these, after every round, something's taken away from you, whether that's your levels, or your health, or your attack power, or your magic, or whatever. So every single round, you're hampered a bit more, and it makes it more challenging to fight the next thing. And so as a reward for doing well, you get this really, really powerful move. I think in some cases that's good, but those mini games, man, they got to be good mini games. They can't be crappy mini games.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of really crappy mini games, especially in the Final Fantasy series, where really good rewards are behind the mini games. I think in particular, I really don't like Choco Hot and Cold from Final Fantasy IX. Because RNG, it's so based in RNG. Like the thing you're digging for is determined when you find the spot, but it's random. It's assigned as soon as you hit the spot for the first time. I've tested this with save states. I know for a fact that I would go to where I knew the spot was. I'd save state and start digging at the spot, and I'd get this item. I'd load the state, start digging again, get a different item.
I forgot about that. Holy crap! You're bringing back some bad memories here,
dude. Choco Hot and Cold, Choco Hot and Cold is a freaking terrible minigame, and no one will convince me otherwise. I see no point. I see no point in hiding really good equipment or whatever behind RNG. Like behind RNG, I can see it something skill based. You have to be good or proficient at the game to do this. But hiding that stuff behind RNG, it's just the game will randomly assign when you get this. I hate that. It's just a waste of time, and it drives me crazy. So if it's a battle minigame, like in Final Fantasy VII's case, although there's some RNG related to which defects you get on your character, I still find that more appropriate than something where it's like the game just decides when you get the thing, and there's nothing, you have no control over that other than to just keep doing it, the same repetitive task over and over and over and over again. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, that's always bad.
Oh crap! Oh, I appreciate actually things that aren't like weapons, more things that are like you were saying, like getting an ability or something that's like part of your character that you're growing. So like I liked Dragon Quest IX. The post game for Dragon Quest IX was like all these crazy dungeons you could go through, and fight bosses you'd already fought before, but they were like many times harder. Because sometimes like I feel like getting an ultimate weapon or whatever feels a little purposeless at that point, because you're already like mowing down everything except for that like weapon that you have to fight.
Yeah.
And then you get it and it's sick, but it's also like so far above and beyond even being like useful.
That's true, because you had to fight the hardest thing in the game to get it, and now that you've got it, it's like, oh, now I can fight the hardest thing in the game. Well, you just did.
As long as there is another hardest thing. I like it when games give you, if you want to keep fighting hard things, you could freaking have at it. You know, like I like that, even though it's a little RPG treadmill ish, you know, like not really going anywhere. But if you want to climb the power curve and just like in I liked it because you could I was like maxing out classes for like all my characters, right? So you can get that one stat that carries over no matter what class they're in.
Do you know what I like the best, actually? I just thought of this. My favorite way of unlocking really cool abilities or equipment is behind a well-structured quest, a side quest. A long side quest that tells, even if possible, a self-contained story inside of it. Something like the Nightingale armor in Skyrim, which you get at the end of that thief quest, which is a really good quest. It's it's probably the best quest in the game. Or is it, wait. The Nightingale armor, is the Nightingale is the thief. That's the thief guild. Okay. Yeah, so that's one of the best quests in the game. And just really solid all around. And when you come to the end of that story, you come to the end of that, you complete that side quest, you get that piece of equipment, and then it's not more useful or not than, it's not like, oh, this is so overpowered now or whatever for any other quest you're doing, because in that game the enemies scale with you, right? So like the game gets harder as you get stronger. So in that game in particular, in the Elder Scrolls in particular, I think that they do a good job with that. I think that's probably my favorite way of obtaining higher level equipment, is behind a really well structured, awesome side quest. So
I like that because my first thought went to Breath of the Wild, the Shrine of Trials, or the new DLC that they have,
Master Sword thing.
Once you go through it, you get the Master Sword glowy forever, and it's like double powerful. But it's not like a boss, right? It's not a mini game. It's just a side thing that you go through, right? And it's its own kind of thing. But I like it when people can be a little more creative. Like you said, Mike, having more like a side quest as opposed to just a boss or something. Like a thought came to my mind of having to like sneak through, kind of like Ocarina of Time with the Gerudo stuff, or like the Thieves Guild, honestly. But when you're having to sneak around, and I guess that's not how it ends up in that quest. But if you find it by going to a certain place that's really hard to just get to in the first place. Not necessarily through powering through enemies like in Zelda, or through like random digs or something like that. But maybe some enemies that you can't kill, like don't even try. But if you can get to this spot, which will take a long time and is really hard, there might be something really cool there. Well, I really do like stuff like that.
My favorite version of that is in Skyrim is the Mace of Moloch ball.
Oh yeah.
What you have to do to get it, and then like what you have to do to like keep it in the end is so jacked. And you have that story with you every time.
That's right.
It's like, oh yeah, I remember what I did to get this.
That's another reason why I like the fact that when those weapons are tied to side quests, is because that weapon then carries memories with it. Like it means something more because you experienced a story that I like that a lot. That's a good point. So yeah.
That would be true of Gladio, Epso Gladio. But in Final Fantasy 15, he doesn't come back with that super killer sword or nothing. So, like in
the main game, he never
the story, and you get this thing. But in the actual game, he doesn't have it, so it doesn't matter.
At least he didn't until that came out. Like in the original game, I don't know. I haven't played through the game
now you can get it and maybe
since that's been. But So maybe now in the game, and maybe someone's played it and can correct me on this. Maybe now when you get through that part in the main story, and he comes back and his sword is different. Maybe they've updated that, but it was not the case, I believe, in the original. And I could be wrong about that too, because maybe he did. I just don't remember correctly. It's been a while, so.
All right.
But I believe that's the case. Okay, Juan Soto, you get another one. You get double dips on this week.
This one should be short.
What games have you been playing that are not for DPG video purposes? Oh, man.
Well, every game's eventually for DVD purposes, but not immediately.
Yeah. Splatoon 2?
Splatoon.
Yeah, totally.
Splatoon would be a
Mario
big one.
Kart. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, finally, I heard some news about the new Nancy Drew game. It should be coming out this year.
Yeah.
I probably won't be talking about it on Dark Pixel Gaming except for right now. Maybe I will, though. I don't know, because they haven't made one for like 2 years. But they've shown the engine, and what they're using Unity now, and it's going to be all interactive and stuff.
Dude, full retrospective review on Nancy Drew.
I would love to. I played all 30. But this one has taken way too long, and so I've got to bring it up now, because it's like, man, this company has like laid off half their staff. They got a new CEO. She's just destroying the company.
They're
trying to target like 5-year-old girls. That didn't work. Yeah, they fired the voice actress, who was a very famous video game voice actress, Lonnie Manila. Look her up. You'll recognize her from all over the place.
She's not gonna want to watch this podcast.
She's done like 200. Yeah, maybe bring up some. Oh, that's right. They're not very good. Anyways, but yeah, I play those games. Definitely not for a DPG. I also was playing Star Ocean for a while. I was streaming it on Twitch. I need to get back into it soon, but I'll probably be reviewing it at some point though. So that even then, it's still kind of for DPG purposes.
Yeah.
Play games on my phone.
It's been really hard for me to find time, especially recently. I restarted a file on Hyper Light Drifter a couple weeks ago, and I played that like 3 or 4 days in a row, and dude, do I love that game. I'm actually kind of glad I didn't beat it when it came out, because remember it had frame rate issues at the time.
Yeah, it did.
They've completely fixed that, so it runs smooth, silky smooth frame rate now. Which is good for an action game like that, right? You really need that. It plays super well. I got further through it on this playthrough than I did on the first, so I've made good progress into it, but just got like super ridiculously busy. Mostly trying to catch up on Zodiac Age with Final Fantasy 12. And the thing that the thing that pisses me off so much about that game is that I'm not like terribly far into it right now. I'm trying really hard to get through it before the end of next month, so that I can get the review out and stuff. But what I've heard is that you unlock the hard difficulty after you beat the game. So I'm playing on this difficulty that is purposefully lowered from previous versions, both the Zodiac Job System version and the original version. So people are just like stomping through this, and it's like I could say, "Oh, this game is way easier than the previous versions, and you shouldn't, you should consider that for purchasing." But then I won't know about what the hard mode is like. So it's almost like they are making me beat it a fourth freaking time to find out what the difficulty balance is when I could have just done that from the start.
There's not a Van amiibo that will unlock.
I wish. I freaking wish. But they're just making my job so much harder on freaking reviewing that game. But
anyways,
yeah, you'll have a very thorough review, that's for sure.
Anyways, so I mean that's for the Dark Pixel Gaming purposes though, the Final Fantasy 12 review. I have been playing Mario Kart a little bit. I've been trying to get through at least one circuit like every night before I go to sleep. I've completed, like I've swept the 50cc and 100cc now, so I'm on 150cc. Trying to just like go through each one and sweep them all so that I get like first place in every single one all the way through to the end. Yeah, all the stars.
Yeah. I did that on the Wii.
Yeah. I'm going through it really slowly, but that is one game that I'll play a little bit. Just a little bit every day, but aside from that, nothing else. I don't have time for anything else. That's it.
Yeah,
I haven't played Hyper Light Drifter in a long time.
Yeah, I'm always playing like 5 minutes of Animal Crossing a day.
That's the kind of game that you can do that, yeah.
Yeah, I started Etrian Odyssey 4, and I want to beat that and actually probably talk about it on the channel. I know there's some people that are into those kinds of games. They're just so different. And yeah, Splatoon 2 just came in, so I'll probably start playing some of that. I have yet to beat Ganon in Breath of the Wild, but I'm at 107 shrines.
I'm 107, dude.
107.
Oh.
So I figure
did you finish the game yet, Kason?
No, I'm still at 113 shrines. I haven't played it since my girl was born. I haven't touched it. It's been over 3 weeks now, and I am literally. I decided I was not going to go for the last few shrines. I'm just going to beat Ganon and beat it. I have my save files currently at Hyrule Castle.
Really,
but I haven't done it yet. I have not just stepped through those doors yet.
The thing is, you're gonna sweep the floor with them because
I got all the
you have like every single thing in the game,
and all the hearts and all the. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There's actually a few 3DS games that I got in. This was like in the springtime at some point. They're all games I want to talk about at some point on the channel. One of those is Devil Survivor, I think, Devil Survivor 1. The other one was Monster Hunter Generations. I play that maybe once a week. There was Etrian Odyssey 4, and then there was another game that I am spacing on right now.
Did you beat Trails in the Sky? Or Trails
no, I need to just like get on there and like I'm like 5 hours away from like being the freaking game. I just need to beat it. I'm so like, it's on my computer, which is in my front room. On the not my desktop. If it was on my desktop, I'd just like bust out and just start going. But that one takes ages to boot up. So sometimes I'm like, do I really want to do that?
Yeah.
But yeah, I need to beat that because there's a lot of people that still want to know what I think about that, and I also just kind of ripped on the game a little during the podcast. I'll probably hear from some of those people. What's your problem, dude?
Oh man.
Anyways, I can't think of anything else right now.
No, I can't do that.
Okay, so that's the answer to that question. Thank you, Juan Soto, for your questions.
All right.
Moving on to Cynthia Chow. Hi, guys. Here's a question for one of your future podcasts. Why do you think there haven't been more main characters in the Final Fantasy series, especially in games like Final Fantasy X and Final Fantasy XII, in which the lead female characters are stronger driving forces in the plot than the actual main characters? That's very true of 12. A little bit less so in 10, but I do know what you mean. Like, I do agree with you. But in Final Fantasy XII especially, it's like Ash is really kind of the main character. But Vaughn is shoehorned in as the main character a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's much more apparent in that game. Yeah, Penelo's shoehorned in pretty hard as well.
Even harder than Vaughn, if you
even harder. Yeah, so, I mean, Final Fantasy 13, for better or for worse, did feature female character in the lead spot.
Who is to this day, I think, the most like popular in Japan Final Fantasy character, right? Isn't it Lightning? That Famitsu survey from like
a few months ago.
Yeah, I think I know what you're.
Cars still like she's like...
in freaking China, dude. There was a Chinese car commercial with lightning and snow in the freaking commercial. That was freaking crazy.
Like, boy, you dig these guys. Does that mean Final Fantasy 13-2 is happening? Is that what I understand?
Well, Final Fantasy 6 with Terra, right?
Yes, that's a good point. She's kind of like the face of that game, even though that game doesn't necessarily have a main character per se. But exactly. I do think she is the you could make the best case for her being the main character.
She's mainer than the others.
She's a little bit more mainer than the other characters, for sure.
Yeah. When I first read this question, my initial thought was like, oh, I thought Final Fantasy did pretty well. And then I thought of it, and I was like, 6 and 13. Oh, fetch. Okay, but it's probably just because you can play as females in battle. And probably the first time I ever played as a female in battle, other than Peach in Mario RPG, which was the first time Peach was... No, because Mario 2 you could be Peach. Anyways, was Yeah, but Final Fantasy, I remember you had like Aerith and Tifa and Yuffie, and it seemed to be actually a pretty balanced male to female ratio as far as like a fighting action game went, and the games did continue that on, but the women were still stereotyped to a large degree, and the men were still, generally speaking, the protagonists. I remember with Final Fantasy 12, when you first saw Fran, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I at first I was like, this is the most eye candy like fan service character I've ever seen in a video game.
Well, that's like at the very beginning.
Ever in my
too,
life.
right?
It was at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And as the game continues, she's not that at all. She's actually extremely well thought out. She's a super round character. She is like even the way she looks, as much as at first glance it seems totally gratuitous. It works in the, what do you call it, like the grace of the culture that she, was raised up in, and it like she ended up becoming one of my favorite characters for that game.
Yeah.
But it didn't, I'm just so used to when I see someone who looks like her having a character that contributes nothing to the game, really, like Cindy in Final Fantasy 15. There's a huge contrast there. But I feel like Final Fantasy, at least for me, gave me the opportunity to fight as females way more often than I was in any other game. But when I stop and look at it, I'm like, yeah, they're actually, it still kind of has a long way to go as far as that ratio goes.
Yeah, for sure. And I do think in Final Fantasy 12 in particular, that following Ash as the main character would have made a lot more sense than following like Vaughn. I think either, because I know Bosch was originally supposed to be the main character. If they had chosen to follow Bosch and they had really developed his relationship with, spoilers, Gabranth,
I'll take him
brother. Anyways, well, you would have already known this one.
Yeah, am I good? Yeah.
You would have already known this one. It's not an end game spoiler. It's an early game spoiler. Gabranth is his
I got you. Okay, yeah.
If they had decided to make that more of a focus of the story, I think that would have been a good way to go. But with the story as it currently stands, it makes way more sense to have Ash as the main character. And again, I think what it really comes down to from a business perspective is what are the demographics that are playing the game? How many male to female? And I don't know what it was at the time. I know that it's a lot higher now. I think we're pretty even now. Male and females that play video games is about 50-50.
Yeah.
But how many male to females are playing Final Fantasy? I think even that series is much more even than people might expect.
Yeah, I think so. Not this recent one, but yeah.
But I think that moving forward, they shouldn't feel afraid that they need to insert some teenage boy into the game as the main character if the story centers more on a female character in Final Fantasy. I don't think that's necessary because I think the market is there amongst female players. So
you know what's funny though, as far as Square Enix goes, and this has been the case ever since the company started, and I don't know why, but every Final Fantasy is always like their last game. Like if this doesn't succeed, the company's screwed, kind of thing. That's like, I don't, even after Final Fantasy VII was super successful, like the company was basically bankrupt by 2000 and needed to be bailed out by Enix. And then Final Fantasy X was like their make or break. And
Final Fantasy X saved them. Final Fantasy X saved them from that. It did.
So it made it so the Enix actually went into business with them. Otherwise, they weren't
interested in the merger. Yep.
But it's funny. It's like every time, like Final Fantasy 15, I heard. I mean, we followed the development of that game. People were saying, "Oh, if this game flops, Square Enix is screwed," right? But it's like, this is their 15th. When will they not be screwed if a game flops? When will that?
People never know though, because everyone says that about like Nintendo.
It's just the media.
It's like,
But I do have a point with this. The point is that when a company is like one away from losing it, right? They tend not to take chances. And going with a female protagonist, as much as people, I'm just talking strictly by the numbers, not even like my personal opinion is not injected into this statement whatsoever. But going with a female protagonist is generally speaking considered a risk because that is uncommon. Nobody else does it. More men play games than women, and there's 1,000 reasons why people give. I don't know that the data necessarily supports it, but it is seen as a risky move. And whenever Final Fantasy is finally not going to be, oh, this one's the make or break game, whenever that finally happens and they're comfortable with where they are, I don't know that it'll ever happen, then they might be more apt to take risky measures. And I know 13 had a female protagonist, but that was one game. But anyways, that's kind of, as it's seen as a risk, and until that's no longer seen as risky behavior, companies that are in a pinch and that spent 10 years making a game, it better be good kind of thing, like are just going to be hard put to it to take that risky.
I think that Horizon Zero Dawn in particular might be a game that changes that perception if it's there for companies feeling like a female protagonist is a risk, because that was a brand new IP. It was not an established franchise, and it had a female character in the lead, and people responded very, very, very positively to it.
Very.
So
I think about it, if they put a male there, would the game have been any better?
No, definitely not.
The answer is no, right? I mean, generally speaking, that would be the case, but yeah.
I feel like in the world of film right now too, Wonder
Film
Woman
has
made people realize Wonder Woman is the highest grossing film of the year right now. It's outgrossed Guardians of the Galaxy 2. A film in a franchise which normally has that benefit, you know, and from a universe that's not beleaguered.
That's true. The last movie that Wonder Woman was in was not.
Yeah, but there's definitely I think it's becoming more and more obvious that, like, it's not that it's not a valid concern for companies to have, but that I don't think you need to shy away from it just strictly because, oh no, people don't want to play as a girl. I remember being like a little kid and being like, you know, I didn't want to play as a girl. Like as a little kid. I'm talking like early.
Even when I was like 12, though, I generally speaking.
Yeah,
like multiplayer in GoldenEye.
When
I was Jaws, I was Oddjob, I was James Bond. I was never Xena or Natalia.
Whenever I get to create my own character in games these days, like my Monster Hunter character is actually always female.
In Splatoon,
Splatoon, I play as female.
Yeah,
in Skyrim, the first time I played as like your typical male Nord, but then every time I played after that, I played as like a female Breton. Because I just found it more interesting.
Well, and Mass Effect too, right?
Mass Effect as well. I enjoy playing as the female Shepard more than the male Shepard. But that's almost more for voice acting reasons. Because I think I could rip on voice actors.
Be careful. Yeah. If you worked on that game, turn it off.
It's
true. It's not a concern now, but when I was 12, I'm sorry.
No, and I think that's natural, though. I think that's natural because you tend to want to you relate to the experience of a male more than you would a female, and so you want to step into your fantasy in something that you feel like you can relate to. I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all, but I do think that games like Tomb Raider, like Horizon Zero Dawn, and films like Wonder Woman are going a long way towards changing the perception for the business people, saying we can.
Especially for big budget,
hey, look, this can work. Yeah,
we absolutely can put a female in the lead, and it will sell, and people will love the character and respond well to it, and for good reason, because these are great. These are great film/games that are done right. And Horizon Zero Dawn, I think, to this point so far, is my favorite game of the year. So. I am with you on that, Cynthia. They should have made Ash the main character of Final Fantasy XII. I think that you could make a strong argument that Yuna should have been the main character of Final Fantasy X as well. It could have worked either way in that game, I think. But I think moving forward, hopefully that they'll not have any concerns with that, especially seeing the success of some of these more recent titles. So.
I'd say at the very least, the whole "I'm a man, you're a woman, I have to save you" kind of thing. Final Fantasy has done a great job for decades at not really falling into that trope. Yeah, the way that maybe Zelda, Mario, or other video games, popular franchises do. But the women can be the women are still healers usually, which is a trope in and of itself. Unfortunately, Final Fantasy definitely falls heavy in that area. But the women fight and are capable of being as strong as, if not more powerful than the men in certain cases. And that's, been ever since the first Final Fantasy. So.
Yep.
Even
All
what's
right.
the girl's name? Rydia in Final Fantasy 4?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Was she's
The
like
summoner.
10 or something like that? She's freaking this powerful ace summoner who can like jack up whole city.
Mhm.
Yeah. Anyways, Final Fantasy has done a good job, generally speaking. I would say.
Yeah, I agree with that. But as you're saying, it could be better, and I hope it does.
It could be
get
better. And when
Okay, everybody.
the most leadly female of your game is freaking Cindy, I'm sorry, you screwed up. Anyways. I know there are other women in the game, most of them antagonists that are powerful. You fight them. But as far as the protagonists go, it's just, yeah, it's unfortunate.
Aranea does become good later on, and she's
Oh,
part of
yeah,
the
she's kind of a
Grompo.
mercenary, right? She kind of
Yeah,
goes.
she's back and forth, but she's a
whichever
good
way.
character primarily. But
Yeah.
and she's a pretty cool character. I like her a lot. Okay, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you're listening to this audio only, feel free to check out our YouTube channel, Dark Pixel Gaming. You can see our video game analysis there. That's where the podcast is uploaded. And if you'd like to see our filmmaking, you can go to just Dark Pixel on YouTube. Check out our freaking crazy videos over there.
Do it.
Okay. Nothing else to say. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day. Peace out.
Peace.